Imagine you're a software engineer and you're waking up for work on a Monday morning and you're getting ready, pouring yourself a fresh cup of coffee, you're still wearing your pajamas, and your phone rings. It's your boss. So you pick it up and your boss screams into your ear that the company has racked up an AWS bill for $120,000 and you have no idea what is going on. Your heart starts pounding so hard you might be thinking you're having a heart attack. You're not sure. So you throw your coffee in the toilet and you log onto your laptop and you pull up the AWS dashboard. And sure enough, there's a bill for $120,000. Now, I wish I could tell you that I made this story up, but I didn't. That story belongs to this guy here on Reddit. And the scary thing is that these stories are actually common. The idea that AWS could suddenly send me a bill for 100K terrifies me. So I went down the rabbit hole and I read a couple dozen of these stories on Reddit and Hacker News and different blogs. It was not healthy. I don't recommend doing it. But the silver lining is that I was able to identify some common patterns that are causing these unexpected bills. So I'm going to go ahead and share with you the top 5 most common patterns that I found. The first pattern I found was data transfers. This guy who encountered the 120K bill, luckily it was the VP of R&D who made the mistake and set up the infrastructure wrong. Um, they were copying large files from S3 to EC2, and they didn't use a virtual private cloud endpoint. So all of the traffic went through the open internet, and that's what caused the bill to be so expensive. And then if I scroll down, right underneath this is another example of the same thing. This guy got a 70K bill over a weekend because he was moving objects from S3 to Glacier, ironically to save money. So I see two solutions to this. One is make sure when you transfer data, it's over the virtual private cloud. And second is to use the AWS pricing calculator. So this can help you estimate the cost of the data transfer before you actually do it. So the next pattern that I saw was around observability. So if we take a look at this guy's story over here, they turned on AWS CloudWatch, which saves logs for you, and it doubled their next bill. So you can go find dozens of examples of people who turned on observability with their cloud provider and it spiked their bill. So the solution that I see to this for AWS in particular is to set a retention period. So here on the AWS website, it's saying by default, logs are kept indefinitely and never expire. So if you set a retention policy, it's going to automatically delete the older logs. So really ask yourself, how long do you need to keep your logs for? Is it a year, a month, 2 weeks, a week? Just if you set a good retention policy, you could cut your bill in half. Pattern number 3 is leaving unused resources running. So here's an example of a team that racked up a 50K bill on Azure because they left an OpenAI service running and they were only testing it for an hour. This is unfortunately a very common thing where people forget about running resources that aren't being used. Luckily, there's a solution for this. For example, on AWS, there's an instance scheduler. So you can configure start and stop times for certain resources. And this is especially good for testing environments where your engineering team isn't going to be testing overnight. So you can schedule some of those resources to shut down automatically outside of business hours and save yourself a lot of money. Pattern number 4 is getting hacked. So I have an example here of a startup that racked up a $450,000 Google Cloud bill. And what happened to them is that they had a compromised API key. So this article also highlights some security measures to protect against this. You can have periodic key rotation or restricting key usage to specific IPs or services. That's great advice. I would also add for security to have two factor authentication. There were some other blog posts I've seen where hackers got their password and were able to get into their dashboard and set up resources to mine cryptocurrency. So make sure that you have good security practices, or it could lead to some very expensive bills. The last pattern that I saw was bad code. So if we take a look at this example over here, there was a startup that racked up a bill for $72,000 overnight. And what happened to them is that they were scraping the internet and they missed the possibility of pages that link back to each other, causing infinite recursion. So, what happened is their scraper would scrape a website which had a link back to itself, causing it to scrape again and again and again. And so it just got stuck in an infinite loop. Then, to salt the wound a little bit more in this story, they had set up a billing budget, but that does not automatically cap with Google Cloud or Google Maps spending. And then down here, they talk about how billing takes about a day to be synced. So they weren't notified until the next day about the charges. So I took a look into this. Is there a way to set a hard cap so that you don't exceed your spending and it would disable your resources if you did hit that cap? So with Google and with AWS, it appears that there's not a way to do that. And I took a look at Azure, and they do have a hard spending limit, but only for a couple different situations with their free account or a subscription type that includes credits over multiple months. Um, so these ones, they will actually disable your services for the rest of the billing period if you hit that limit. But for everyone else, if you don't have a hard cap, what do you do in this type of situation? And the only thing that I could think of was better testing. So, what these guys could have done is set up their bot to scrape for maybe 1 minute and then review the results of that, and then try again for 10 minutes and then review the results of that to make sure everything is working. And then they would have been able to catch that infinite recursion problem, and it wouldn't have led to this big bill. Hopefully my paranoid research helps you out, and be careful when you're using these cloud platforms. Make sure you do your research, your due diligence. Otherwise, you could end up with a nightmare of a bill. Happy coding and Godspeed.